Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. My name is T.S. Sudhir, and you're watching Study with Sudhir, your own digital classroom. Now, many of you had asked for how to write a good narrative essay, and this applies to both ICSE class 9 and 10 students as well as ISC class 11 and 12 students. Now, what is it that you need to bear in mind when you need to write a narrative essay? Uh, is the fact that it's very different for one from an argumentative essay that we discussed in the previous video. What you need to bear in mind, and I've done videos on how to write essays in general. You can look at that video. I'll put the link also in the description box. Is that in a narrative essay, you need to ensure that you keep the storytelling engaging and interesting. It's a simple thumb rule. आप किसी को कोई कहानी बताते हैं, unless you are able to narrate what happened in an interesting manner that engages the mind of that other person, how would that person really be interested in what you have to say? The same goes for your writing style. Writing style may always remember one thing, and this is something which I have found in many of the essays which are submitted to me by students. The common mistake they make is to write a full intro. My point is, get into the story straight. You have been given a particular incident to relate, to narrate, or to imagine that a particular incident has taken place. So get into it straight. That's the thumb rule. आप उस पे एक इंट्रो लिखेंगे तो ये आर्गुमेंटेटिव ऐसे नहीं है. यहां पर आपको एक कहानी को नरेट करना है. This is the most common mistake that many students make. So please bear in mind. Also, when you are working out the narration, please ensure that you have the plot of that particular story in mind. You work it out in the 15 minutes of reading time that you get. कि मैं किस तरह से शुरू करूंगा? What will be the high point of my narration and how will I conclude the particular essay? So आपको इन तीनों चीजों पर ध्यान देना पड़ेगा. Keep it very simple. इसमें कोई भी जरूरत नहीं है कि आप फैंसी वर्ड्स का इस्तेमाल करें. Keep the narration very simple. Your plot is what matters. How you are able to keep the examiner engaged and interested in what you have to say is what matters. And many of you have purchased my book on the SWS book of essays and letters. Now, this has been primarily written in terms of the word length for ICSE class 9 and 10 students, but ISC class 11 and students who have bought this book have also found this extremely useful for the simple reason that आपको एक structure के बारे में एक अच्छा idea मिल जाएगा कि okay, this is the way I need to structure my narrative essay. So what you need to do is to go to the app, download the Study with Sudhir app. उस पर अगर आप स्टोर को क्लिक करेंगे आपको ये बुक मिल जाएगी वहां पर. और यू कुड गो टू आवर वेबसाइट studywithsudhir.com. कोर्सेज पर क्लिक कीजिए, आपको ये राइट एट द टॉप मिल जाएगी. यू कैन ऑर्डर द बुक. इट टेक्स 7 वर्किंग डेज टू डिलीवर. तो जितना जल्दी हो सके आप इसको ऑर्डर कीजिए. Please make use of the essays which are in this book, also letters in the case of class 10. And I can assure you that you will find this extremely useful because the essays are high quality essays written by me, original content, not copy pasted from anywhere. And that will give you an idea. And if you see the way the essays flow from one paragraph to the other, आपको idea हो जाएगा कि किस तरह से एक narrative essay को treat karna hai. Okay, so this has all those essays. So what I'm going to do in this video is to read out 2 of my essays. Any 2 of my, randomly I picked up 2 of my essays so that you get an idea कि किस तरह से एक essay को, एक narrative essay को develop किया जा सकता है. So let's get started. Okay, so this is as part of the SWS Natu Natu series of 2024. My first essay is, this is the question. You found a stray dog who was attacked by other dogs and got injured. So what is the element here? A group of stray dogs attacking a stray dog who has got injured in the process. Now you need to, now that's the setting. Now you need to narrate what you did, explain the kind of bond that you formed with the dog who you rescued and how it changed you. These are the setting and the 3 different elements that you need to include in case if you want to score very high mark. So let's go through this so that you understand how you structure an essay like this. Now you need to do the setting first. I was on my morning walk, so I am kind of giving the setting of where I am. I was on my morning walk when I saw a pack of aggressive alpha male dogs. So I'm kind of qualifying alpha male dogs. In fact, when I had written this essay and a couple of my students had asked me, what is alpha male? Now, alpha male is generally a male dog which is used to dominating a particular area. If you would have seen stray dogs in your area, you would find that there is always one dog which is like the leader of the pack, right? That pack of alpha male dogs were bullying a little pup who seemed to have strayed away from his mother and wandered straight into unfriendly territory. So what I have also done is to personify that dog, that pup. So it kind of gives you a more, especially since the topic is also like that. There is a sense of attachment. There is a sense of emotional bonding that you feel. And in any case, that is going to be the topic of this essay. So you see, right from my first line, I'm getting the examiner, I'm drawing him or her into feeling interested in what I have to write. My protective instincts kicked into overdrive. That means, I immediately rushed to save the dog. I could have written it like that, but by writing it like this, I'm stylizing the way I write. Now, none of these words are difficult words. My protective instincts kicked into overdrive. Now, that's a phrase you may or may not know, but kicked into overdrive means it's almost like a synonym for I rushed into it. And without a second thought, I rushed to intervene. The canines retreated because I had gone to intervene. And I took the injured and visibly shaken pup. So I'm giving you a sense of how that pup is feeling at that point in time. Emotion. Always remember, in narrative essays in particular, or in the original story, or in picture composition, if you're telling a story, emotions work. Humor works, emotions work. Humor is very difficult to write. Emotions are also difficult, but these two elements always work very well in a narrative essay or in an original story. Little did I know that this act of compassion, what I have done, would form a bond that would change both our lives. After feeding him water to calm him down, because obviously the dog was petrified, terrified, frightened. So he needed water to calm him down. I rushed the pup to the nearest veterinary clinic. The vet's prognosis is his diagnosis. What he said was wrong with the pup was not promising, which means there is something to feel worried. You see, I'm drawing the examiner into the story of my pup. You see, I'm kind of creating a bond, an invisible bond, also with the examiner. I'm telling the examiner, see, ये story interesting है, पढ़ो इसको. Feel connected with the story. That's what you need to do. The vet's prognosis was not promising. You could have written positive also, as the pup's injuries were extensive. He had suffered a lot of injuries because of the dogs. The days that followed, and it kind of continued for many more visits to the vet's clinic, were a whirlwind of doctor visits, medications, and round-the-clock care. I decided to take on the responsibility of being this dog's guardian during its recovery. I named him Hero. Okay, so now this is important. Always I say, give names so that there is sense of identification. Instead of dealing with pronouns, you will now deal with names, and that always makes it easier and better in a narrative story. It was more difficult to draw Hero out of the trauma that he had suffered. He felt vulnerable. So now you see, now the moment I have named the dog, now I am using he. So I'm personifying and dealing with him almost as if he's a human. Hero would always often retreat to a corner in the living room, putting his head down. So I'm kind of giving you an idea about his state of mind. I was advised to give him time by the vet. After all, time is a greater healer. In about a week or so, Hero, even though cautious and apprehensive, began to venture out of his corner. Now, how am I able to write this? I don't have a pet at home. but I see a lot of dog videos. I do see a lot of dog videos on YouTube, and perhaps it is that the result of that that I'm able to give you so many details about the personality of a dog. Okay, so it helps. There was trust in those once fearful eyes. At one time, his eyes were full of fear, but now there was an element of trust emerging. The transformation that followed was remarkable. One of the most beautiful aspects of this bond was the unspoken understanding we developed between me and Hero. I could sense that when Hero was in pain or discomfort, he learned to recognize my presence as a source of comfort and safety. So he felt safe in my presence. We spent countless hours together tending to wounds and simply being there for each other. So the whole process of healing took quite a while, but we were there with each other all through. The dog's journey to recovery, one of patience and unwavering love, changed me, because the question also says how it changed you. I learned the power of empathy and selflessness, that you kind of selflessly love and care for someone else. The act of rescuing this stray dog became a life changing experience for me. It showed me the incredible capacity of the human heart to care for another human being, regardless of their species. So, these are things which you write from the heart, what you feel. And the more you read these kind of essays, it will give you an idea that, okay, this is the way to write a good formed sentence, a sentence that conveys what is there in your heart. Because the topic, please remember, is an emotional kind of a topic. So you need to get that emotion into it. The second narrative essay that I will read will be more of an action oriented narrative essay. So there the tone, language will be very different, right? Here, 6 months since that momentous morning. So it's been 6 months since that happened. The once fearful and anxious dog is now a confident and affectionate companion. So now I'm calling him a companion. I'm no longer calling him a dog. No outing is complete without Hero, as we explore different parts of India together and revel in the simple joys of life. So what I've done is to end on a very happy note. Please remember the last point. Always try to have essays which have the elements of friendship, elements of positivity, elements of cheerfulness. Those are things which kind of generally appeal more to an ICSE examiner. Try not to have things about death, suicide, things which are a little more morbid. So try to kind of have those kind of more positive elements. They generally work better in an ICSE oblique ISC examination. Let's now move to essay number 2, so that I've chosen two different kinds of essays so that you get an idea about what kind of topics they come and what your approach ought to be. This is one of the PYQs, if I remember right. You were waiting at the ATM booth of Focus Bank when a white car pulled up and four men with masks rushed into the bank. They are robbers. Narrate how an attempted bank robbery was foiled by an alert security guard. Now, what are the elements? There is a bank robbery taking place. There are four robbers, and then there is the alert security guard. Now, here, unlike the first one where you were the protagonist, here you are not the protagonist. You are just an observer. So please remember this. When I gave this assignment to my students, I found some of them at least had made themselves the more important person. No, it is the alert security guard who is the hero of this particular story. Now, I had just finished withdrawing money at the ATM booth of Focus Bank. It seemed a lazy day at the Focus Bank branch, so I'm setting it up with very few customers at the counters. After I finished counting the notes, I chatted with the security guard, admiring his gleaming rifle. So what I have done is to introduce the security guard right in the first paragraph, because as I said, he's the hero of the essay. I have been here for the last 4 years. Thank God I never had to use it. He chuckled. It's almost like he's just relaxed and he's chuckling to himself and generally saying it. His name badge read Hanumanta Rao. So that's the name. As I said, giving a name always helps. Suddenly, he had just said that कि मैंने कभी इस बंदूक का इस्तेमाल नहीं किया. उसी समय पर एक सफेद गाड़ी आई. It screeched to a halt. Now you see there is action. In my language, I have introduced momentum, dynamism, energy, and action. Screeched to a halt a few yards from where we were standing. Four men wearing masks dashed out of the car. So look at my language. I've used the word screeched. I've used the word dashed out of the car. They were armed with pistols and carried big black bags in their hands. I immediately realized that this was a daring attempt to rob the bank in broad daylight. So I have given the setting while also introducing a lot of energy into the paragraph, because unlike the first one, which was a slow approach narrative essay, this one is expected to have a lot of momentum. The men pushed me because he was standing somewhere near the gate. I was standing somewhere near the gate, and the security guard aside and fired shots in the air. One of them rushed to the cashier and asked him to empty the bundles of notes into his bag. The scared cashier hesitated, but the sight of the pistol made him do as instructed. So the first instinct, how can I do this? But then if you have a pistol pointed at you, that's what made the cashier fear for his life and do as instructed. Just then, and now comes our hero. Just then, Hanumanta Rao. We have already introduced him. I have already introduced him at the beginning of the essay. Action hua, and now hui hero ki entry. Fata poster, nikla hero. Just then, Hanumanta Rao did something extraordinary. He rushed to the reception area and pressed the emergency button that was connected to the nearby police station. You would be knowing that in many banks, they do this. There is an emergency button that is linked to the nearest police station, so that in case of an emergency like a robbery like this one, the nearest police station can be alerted without anyone having to make a phone call. Obviously, police वालों को मालूम होगा जब बैंक robbery होगा कोई बैठ के phone नहीं कर रहा होगा. Okay. This device had been installed to inform the police in the event of an emergency. It could be a fire mishap, it could be a bank robbery. It let off a sharp alarm sound that made it seem as if the police had arrived at the bank entrance. उससे इस तरह की आवाज निकली as if the police had already arrived, like a siren kind of a thing. The robbers panicked. All said and done, there will also be having a human reaction. They gaped at each other as if assessing the situation. Kya ab kya kare? And then in a flash, dropped the bag full of cash and ran out of the bank. The driver of the car also realized, because usko bhi awaaz sunai padi hogi, that something was amiss, and as soon as the four men got out of the car, he drove recklessly out of the parking lot, but it was to no avail as a police jeep intercepted them at the gate and took them into custody. Action over. So, एक action pack 2 paragraphs में सब कुछ pack कर दिया. So this kind of language is important. You know what is the language? Recklessly, intercepted, then in a flash, gaped at each other. So panicked. You know, these are kind of words. And if you see, I have not repeated any word, but I have been able to take the story forward. That's what I want you students to do. The bank robbery was prevented thanks to the presence of mind and courage, because it needs a lot of courage and presence of mind of Hanumanta Rao, the security guard. Everyone complimented him, and the manager announced that a cash reward would be presented. Announced a cash reward that would be presented to Hanumanta Rao at a special function organized by the bank. As I stepped out after this whole thing got over, then I stepped out. I looked at Hanumanta Rao's rifle. He had saved everyone without firing a bullet. He still had not used it, but he had managed to avert a major disaster, a major bank robbery, without firing a bullet. So you end with that, you make it interesting, you leave the examiner with a smile on his face, ki, okay, interesting way of ending the thing. So you also connected it with the beginning, because beginning में एक stray comment हनुमंत राव ने मारा है कि मैंने इस राइफल का इस्तेमाल कभी नहीं किया, और यहां पर भी इस्तेमाल नहीं किया, but बिना इस्तेमाल किए he managed to save the hard-earned money of the customers of Focus Bank. Okay, so that's how you end the narrative essay. The conclusion पर हमेशा ध्यान दीजिएगा. intro हमेशा directly get into it, and how you structure the plot is very important. So identify, action है तो मेरे को action डालना है, इमोशन है तो मेरे को इमोशन डालना है. आपको इस तरह के नैरेटिव ऐसे आ सकते हैं where you are asked to say that something went wrong in the morning assembly, something very funny happened. In that case you need to get in the element of humor. खुद सोचो, अगर मेरे को ये बात कोई बता रहा है, will I feel amused by that? That has to be your test of whether anyone would be interested in finding it a humorous and a funny incident. I hope this video has been of use to you. Thank you very much. As part of the Natu Natu series, I hope it is being of use to you and you're making full use of all the videos that I'm putting out every day at 7 p.m. Tata, bye bye. Thank you very much. Subscribe to the channel and press on the bell icon so that you can get regular notifications of whatever videos we put out. Bye bye.